Friends, my channel name is Indian Epic History. Search this channel name on YouTube. Go to playlist option for all videos like Ramayan, Mahabharat, Puran. Otherwise, click the channel name below the video or picture. Then go to the playlist option. This is Bori critical Valmiki Ramayan book Ayodhya Kand chapter 10, having instructed that the arrangements should be made for Raghava's consecration. The great and powerful king entered the inner quarters to tell the one who should be loved about the good news. Press the red subscribe option and press the bell icon for my latest video updates. She was lying down on the ground there. She was means Kaikeyi because of Kubja Manthara in a state that did not benefit her. On seeing her in this state, the Lord of the earth was tormented by grief. He was aged, but his wife was young. She was dearer to him and his own life. She should be sinless, but her resolution was wicked. He saw her lying down on the ground. She was like a female elephant in the forest, struck by a poisoned arrow in the course of a hunt. He touched her like a giant elephant touching that female elephant in the forest. Scared and bereft of his senses, he engulfed her in his arms. Desiring the lotus eyed woman, he spoke these words: I do not know why there is this anger in you, O queen. Who has who has accused you or insulted you? O fortunate one, your lying down in the dust causes me grief. O fortunate one, Darsharata told Kaikeyi, O fortunate one, why are you lying down on the ground as if you are unconscious? You are the one who disturbs the senses, yet your senses seem to be being possessed by a demon. There are plenty of accomplished and praised physicians. O beautiful one, tell me what ails you and they will cure you. Whom do you desire something agreeable to be done to? Whom do you desire something disagreeable to be done to? To whom shall I do something agreeable, and to whom shall I do something extremely disagreeable? Will I kill someone we should not be killed? Whom will I kill, and whom will I free? Who shall be made poor? Who shall be made rich? Who shall be given riches? Whose riches will be taken away? I and all those who are subservient to me are under your control. I am not interested in countering any of your wishes, even if it concerns my own life. Tell me what you wish for. The earth belongs to me wherever the wheels of the chariot goes. Addressed and comforted in this way, she desired to say what was disagreeable. She readied herself to make her husband suffer. O king, no one has insulted me. No one has shown me disrespect. There is something that I desire, and it can be accomplished by you. When you know what I wish for, do it if you so desire. After you give me your plague, I will tell you what I wish for. O king, the king was completely under the control of his beloved wife and was addressed in this way. The greatly energetic one smiled a little and told Kaikeyi, O proud one, with the exception of Rama, tiger among men, do you not know that there is no other human I love more than you? O fortunate one, my heart is sinking. Energize it through your touch. O Kaikeyi, discerning this, tell me what virtuous act have you thought of? You know about your own strength, therefore you should not harbor any suspicions. I will do what causes you pleasure. I take a plague all my good deeds, delighted at the words. She told him about the desire that was in her mind, extremely terrible, like the news of a sudden death. With Indra at the forefront, let the 30 gods progressively hear about the boons you have plagued to bestow on me. Let the moon, the sun, the sky, the planets, the night, the day, the direction, the universe, the earth, Gandharvas, Rakshasas, the roamers of the night, the living beings in house, the gods in houses, and all the creatures hear the words you have spoken. He does not waver from the truth. He is extremely energetic and knows about Dharma. He is extremely controlled. He is granting me a boon. Let the gods hear about it. The queen sage, the great archer, who was ready to grant boons but had promised excessively, compounded by desire. Thereafter she spoke these words: O Lord, O great king, you had granted me two boons earlier. I am asking you to grant those to me now. Listen to my words. All the arrangements have been made for Raghava's consecration. I desire that these arrangements should be used for Bharata's consecration. Rama will become an ascetic and will reside in Dandakaranya for 14 years. He will sport matted hair and will be attired in rags and bark, bereft of any thorns. Bharata must be made the heir apparent. Right now, I wish to see Raghava leave for the forest. The great king heard Kaikeyi's terrible words. He was distressed and lost his senses like a deer which has seen a tiger. Bereft of his senses, he sank down on the bare ground and sighed deeply. Enraged, the king uttered the word shame. With his senses overtaken by sorrow, he again fell unconscious. After a long period of time, the king regained his senses but was extremely miserable. He spoke angrily to Kaikeyi as if he was going to burn her down with his sword. O cruel one, O one who is wicked in conduct, O one who destroys the lineage, what wicked act has Rama done towards you? What evil have I done? Raghava's conduct towards you has always been like that towards a mother. That being the case, why are you engaged in causing this injury to him? You entered my own house with a view to bring about my destruction. I did not know that the daughter of a king was actually a snake with virulent poison. All the living beings on earth extol Rama's qualities. What crime have I committed that I have to cast aside my beloved son? I can abandon Kausalya, Sumitra, my prosperity, and my own life. But as long as I am alive, how can I cast aside Rama, who is devoted to his father? On seeing my eldest son, I am overcome by great delight. If I do not see Rama, my consciousness is destroyed. The world can exist without a sun and crops without water. However, without Rama, there cannot be life in my body, or one who has made up her mind about something wicked. Enough is enough. Cast this resolution aside. I will even touch your feet with my head. Be pacified. The Lord of the earth lamented like one without a protector, suffering exceedingly in his heart. He fell down before the extended feet of his wife, the queen, and seized them. He embraced them like one who was afflicted. Next, chapter 11. The great king did not deserve to lie down in this fashion. He was like Yayati, dislodged from the world of the gods after his store of good merits had been exhausted. Kaikeyi was in the form of something unpleasant, wishing to attain an undesirable objective. She was without fear and was causing fear instead. The beautiful one asked for the boons yet again. O great king, you pride yourself on speaking the truth and being firm in your vows. Why do you then wish to refuse the boon I asked for? Thus addressed by Keki, for a while King Dasharatha's anger made him lose his senses. He then replied, O ignoble one, you are my enemy. When Rama, bull among men, lives for the forest and I am dead, you will accomplish your desire. May you be happy if I tell the truth about vanishing Rama to the forest in an attempt to cause pleasure to Kaikeyi. This will not be regarded as the truth. It is certain that my infinite ill fame in this world will destroy me. His senses distracted, he lamented in this way. The sun set and night presented itself. Though it was adorned with the lunar disk, the night seemed to be afflicted. To the lamenting king, the night seemed to be dark. The aged king Dasharatha sighted long and warm sights. With his eyes directed towards the sky, he lamented in his misery. I joined my hands in salutation. I do not wish for a morning or pass swiftly. I am shameless since I am beholding Kaki who was brought about this great calamity. After having said this, the king joined his hands in salutation and addressed Kaki in these words: O Kaki, show me your favors. I am virtuous in conduct, but am distressed. I am devoted to you, but my lifespan is over. O Queen, O Fortunate One, you should show me your favors, especially because I am a king, O one with the beautiful hips. Everything that I have said has indeed been addressed to nothingness. O virtuous one, O child, you are kind hearted. Show me your favors. The king's coppery red eyes were full of tears, and his sentiments were pure. However, she was wicked in her sentiments. Having heard the wonderful and piteous lamentations of her husband, the cruel one did not heed his words. At this, the king fell senseless again. He, beloved one, was not content and spoke against his words. On seeing that his son would be exiled, he was miserable and bereft of his senses, fell down on the ground. Next chapter 12. Afflicted by sorrow on account of his son and bereft of his senses, he fell down on the ground and writhed there. Glancing towards the descendants of the Ishwaku lineage, he wicked one said, What is this wickedness you are displaying by lying down on the ground? Having heard my words, you gave me your plague. You should remain within the sanctioned bounds. People who know about Dharma say that truth is the supreme Dharma. I have adhered to the truth and have urged you to follow Dharma. O King, having given a plague to a hawk, King Sabya gave the bird a part of his own body and obtained a supreme end. In that fashion, without faltering, the energetic Alarka offered his own eyes when he was asked by a Brahmana accomplished in the Vedas. Devoted to truth, the Lord of the rivers does not budge from his plague to the slightest extent. Adhering to his plague and the truth, he does not transgress the shoreline. O noble one, if you do not adhere to the plague you have given me and act accordingly, I will be abandoned in front of you, I will cast aside my life. The king was thus addressed by Keki, who had no hesitation at all. He was incapable of freeing himself from the bond, like Bali was deprived by Indra. His heart was disturbed and his face was pale. He was like a bull trembling in the yoke. Caught between two wheels, the king's eyes were clouded as if he was unable to see. With great difficulty, he used his fortitude to calm himself and spoke to Kaikeyi, O wicked one, before the fire and with the use of mantras, I accepted your hand. I abandon you and the son born to me through you. At this, Kaikeyi, wicked in her conduct, again spoke to the king. She was eloquent in the use of words and became senseless with rage. She spoke these harsh words, O king, why are you uttering words that are like destructive poison? destructive poison. Without any hesitation, you should summon your son Rama here. Instead, my son in the kingdom and make Rama a resident of the forest. Eliminate my enemies and do what needs to be done. The king was like an excellent horse, fiercely struck by the whip. Thus goaded, he repeatedly spoke to Kaikeyi, I am tied down by the nose of Dharma. My senses have been destroyed. I wish to see my eldest and beloved son Rama, who is devoted to Dharma. Hearing the king's words, Kaikeyi herself told to Suta, Go and fetch Rama here, miserable about his son, and with his eyes red with sorrow. The prosperous king of the Ishwaku lineage, devoted to Dharma, also spoke to the Suta. Sumantra heard the piteous words and saw that the king was distressed. He joined his hands in salutation and withdrew some distance away. Because of his distress, the great king, was unable to say anything. Kaikeyi, who knew about the consultation, spoke to Sumantra. O Sumantra, I wish to see the handsome Rama. Fetch him here quickly. With delight in his heart, he paid heed to these auspicious words. Thus urged, Sumantra hurried. The one who knew about Dharma thought it was evident that Rama was being brought for the consecration. Having made up his mind in this way, the Sutta was filled with great delight, the greatly energetic, and departed, wishing to see Raghava. As he suddenly emerged near the gate, he saw many kings who had assembled. He also saw many prosperous citizens. They too had arrived near the gate and were stationed there. Brahmana accomplished in the Vedas had resided there during the night. With the royal priest, they also arrived at the spot. There were advisors, commanders of armies, and the foremost citizens. Delighted at the prospect of Raghava's consecration, they assembled there. On the day of Pushya's conjunction, when a sparkling sun arose, the Indras among Brahmanas had thought of Rama's consecration. There were golden pots of water, and the auspicious seat was ornamented. The chariot was covered with shining tiger skin. Water was brought from the sacred conjunction of the Ganga and the Yamuna, and also from other auspicious rivers, lakes, wells, ponds, and rivulets. Water was brought from rivers that flowed eastwards, upwards, diagonally, those that merged together, and from those that merged with the ocean from every direction. Honey, curds, clarified butter, parched grain, darba grass, flowers, and milk were gathered. Golden and silver pots were filled with parched grain and milk. They were filled with excellent water and shone with lotuses and lilies. An excellent whisk made of yag here was kept ready for Rama. Palin spread out like the moon's beam and was decorated with jewels. There was a white umbrella shaped like the lunar disk. It was beautiful and radiant and was kept ready for the consecration. A white bull was kept ready, and a white horse was stationed there. A handsome elephant was also there, ready to be mounted. There were 8 auspicious maidens adorned in every kind of ornament. There were all kinds of musical instruments and minstrels. All these had been collected for a consecration in the kingdom of the Ishwakus. All these had been arranged for the prince's consecration. Following the king's words, the kings had assembled. Unable to see him, they asked, Who will inform the king? We do not see the king, and the sun has arisen. Arrangements have been made for the intelligent Rama to be consecrated as the heir apparent. Sumantra, who was respected by the king, spoke these words to the kings from various countries who were conversing among themselves. I will convey your words and ask the long living king, who must have awakened about his welfare and the reason for his not coming. Having said this, the one who knew about the ancient accounts entered the inner quarters. He pronounced words of benediction and praised Raghava. The illustrious night has passed and the auspicious day has presented itself. O tiger among kings, arise and do what must be done next. O king, brahmanas, commanders, and armies and merchants have arrived. He was thus praised by the Sutta Sumantra, who was accomplished in counseling. The king arose and spoke these words: I am not asleep. Quickly bring Raghava here. King Dasharatha again told the Sutta this. Hearing the king's word, he bowed his head down and honored him, thinking about the great joy what would follow. He left the king's residence happy. He protected along the royal road that was decorated with flags and standards. The Sutta heard words being spoken about Rama's consecration. Sumantra saw Rama's beautiful residence which was as radiant as Kailasha and as resplendent as Shakra's residence. Shakra means Indra. There were large doors and it was adorned with hundreds of balconies. The top was golden and the gates were decorated with jewels and coral. It was as radiant as autumn clouds and was like a cave in Meru. The gigantic place was decorated with the best of wreaths and garlands, while the assembled men and the assembled kings looked on. The charioteer advanced on a chariot yoked to horses. Having reached the extremely expensive and extremely large residence, the charioteer was delighted and his body hair stood up. The excellent residence was like the summit of a mountain, like an immobile cloud, and like a large vimana, with no one bearing the way. The charioteer entered like a makara, entering an ocean filled with a large number of jewels. Next, chapter 14, passing through that crowd of people, he approached the door to the inner quarters. The one who knew about Asian accounts entered the chamber. There were young guards with polished earrings, wielded shining spears and bows, devoted, attentive, and not distracted in their duties. There were aged and ornamented ones, dressed in oach garments and holding canes. He was these self-controlled supervisors stationed there at the doors. They were engaged in doing what brought Rama pleasure and saw him arrive. He said, Go and quickly tell Rama and his wife that the Sutta wished to enter. To convey his father's command wishing to bring him pleasure, Raghava instructed that he should be brought in. Seated on an ornamented seat, he looked like Vishravana. The Sutta saw him on that golden couch covered with an excellent spade. The sculpture of enemies was smeared with sacred and fragrant sandalwood paste that had the complexion of the blood of a boar. With a whisk made of yak hair in her hand, Sita stood by his side. He was like the moon with Chitra Nakshatra by the side. Blazing in the own energy, he seemed to scorch like the sun. The minstrel was accomplished in humility. Humbly, he worshipped the grantor of boons, joining his hands in salutations. He asked about the welfare of the one who was reclining on the couch, Sumantra, who was respected by the king, spoke these words to the prince, O Kausalya's excellent son, your father and queen Kaikeyi wish to see you. Go there quickly. Thus addressed, the immensely radiant lion among men was delighted. Honoring him, he spoke to Sita, O queen, the king and the queen have uh, summoned me to their presence. They have certainly thought of something connected with the consecration. It is evident that the extremely generous one with the maddening eyes must intend to do something for me and has accordingly urged the king. A messenger befitting the assembly there has arrived. It is certain that the king will anoint me as the heir apparent today. I must quickly have this place and go and see the king. You stay happily in this household and find you pleasure. The black eyed Sita honored her husband, thinking of auspicious things. She followed him up to the door. He greeted all those who had assembled there and ascended the supreme chariot, which was like a fire. Its radiance was golden and it stole the eyes. Supreme horses that were like baby elephants were yoked to it. It was as swift as the thousand-eyed Indra's chariot yoked to tawny horses. Raghava, blazing in his prosperity, departed swiftly. Its clatter was like the roaring of clouds in the sky as it emerged from the residence. Its beauty was like that of the moon emerging from clouds. Raghava's younger brother Lakshmana ascended the chariot at the rear. He held a whisk and an umbrella in his hands and protected his brother. As the crowds of people emerged in every direction, a tumultuous roar arose. Raghava heard the conversation of the people who had assembled there. All the citizens of the city cheerfully spoke many things about his own respective rule. Through the king's favors, Raghava is advancing towards great prosperity today. He will make all our dreams of prosperity come true. Once he becomes our ruler, if he rules over his kingdom for a long time, the people will have everything to gain. He proceeded amidst the noise created by the horses and elephants. Sutas and Magadhas pronounced benedictions ahead of him. The best of musicians praised his greatness, and he protected like Vishravana. The squares were full of large coverts of people and female elephants, male elephants, chariots, and horses. There were shops with a lot of jewels and many commodities. As he went along, Rama saw the beautiful and large road. Next, chapter 15. With his joyful well wishers, Rama ascended the chariot. He saw the beautiful city populated by crowds of people. Painted white, the lotuses were like clouds. Rama proceeded along the royal road amidst incense from Agaru. The excellent royal road was adorned and was free of obstructions. There were many kinds of merchandise and deserved kinds of food. He heard the benedictions pronounced by many well wishers and proceeded, honoring all the men as they deserved. Follow the conduct of your grandfathers and great grandfathers. Get consecrated today, rule according to the path they reversed. We were nurtured by his father and by his earlier ancestors. Once Rama becomes the king, all of us will reside even more happily. We have had enough of enjoying objects of pleasure, and we have had enough of pursuing the supreme objective. Now that we see Rama live to become established in the kingdom, there is nothing that will be more agreeable to us than that the infinitely energetic Rama should become consecrated in the kingdom. The well-wishers uttered this and other auspicious words, honoring his own self. Hearing this, Rama proceeded along the royal road. No one could turn his sight away from that supreme among men. No man was capable of crossing Raghava. He had dharma in his soul and exhibited compassion towards all the four varnas and towards those who were aged. Therefore, they were devoted to him. He reached the royal palace, which was like the great Indra's residence. The prince entered his father's abode, which blazed in prosperity. Dasharatha's son passed through all the chambers, taken his leave of all the people. With a pure heart, he entered the inner quarters. All the people were delighted. The king's son entered and approached his father. They waited for him to emerge again, just as the Lord of the rivers waited for the moon to rise. Chapter 16. Rama saw his father seated on an auspicious seat. His face was distressed. He was with Kaki, who was tending to him humbly. The first worshipped at his father's feet, extremely controlled. He next worshipped at Kake's feet, with tears in his eyes. The miserable king only uttered the word Rama. He was incapable of glancing at him or saying anything more. He had never seen such a fearful form of the king earlier, therefore, Rama was overcome with fear. Like when one touches a snake with one's feet, the great king sighted his senses miserable. He was afflicted by sorrow and torment. His mind was disturbed and grief stricken. He was like an ocean that cannot be agitated, turbulent, because of a garland of waves. He was like the sun during an eclipse, or like a rishi who has uttered a lie on seeing the unthinkable. His father, enveloped in sorrow, he was also agitated like the ocean on the day of the full moon, engaged in ensuring the welfare of his father. Rama began to think, why has the king not greeted me back today? At other times, even when he is embarrassed, my father is pacified on seeing me. However, today he seems exhausted on seeing me. Rama became miserable and afflicted by sorrow. Greeting Kaikeyi, Rama spoke these words: have I ignorantly committed a crime that my father is angry with me? Tell me and pacify him. His face is distressed and he is miserable. He is not speaking to me. Is something troubling him physically or mentally, making him suffer? It is rare to be happy always. Has something happened to Prince Bharata, handsome to behold? Or the great spirited Shatrugna, was something inauspicious befallen my mothers? If the king is angry, I do not wish to remain alive even for an instant, causing dissatisfaction to the great king and not followed my father's word. A great soul man perceives him as a divinity from whom he himself has emerged. That being evident, how can one act otherwise? I trust that in your rage you have not uttered any harsh words, as a result of which my father has been slighted and his mind is disturbed. O Queen, I am asking you, tell me the truth. Why is the Lord of Man suffering from an affliction that has not happened earlier? If the king's words lead to that, I will leap into the fire, I will consume freeze poison or submerge myself in the ocean. The king is engaged in my welfare and I am devoted to my preceptor, my father, O queen. Therefore tell me the king's words and what he desires. I promise to do that. Rama does not speak in two contrary ways. He was truthful in speech and upright. The ignoble Kaikeyi spoke these extremely terrible words to Rama. O Raghava, earlier in a battle between the gods and the Asuras, your father was hurt by darts. When I protected him in that great battle, he granted me two boons. O Raghava, on that basis, I have asked the king for Bharata's consecration and for you to leave for Dandakaranya today. O best among men, if you desire that you and your fathers should stick to the plague of truth, then hear my words, adhere to your father's instruction and to what he has plagued. You must go to the forest for 14 years. You will have to reside in Dandakaranya for 14 years. You will have to forgive about the consecration and wear bark and rage. Bharata will rule this earth, full of many jewels and with horses, chariots, and elephants from the city of Kausalya. Rama, the slayer of enemies, heard these disagreeable words. which were like that. However, he was not distressed and spoke to Kaikeyi, "It shall be that way. I shall depart from this residence to there, the forest, to ensure that the king's plague is satisfied. I will wear bark and rags, but I wish to know why the invincible and great king, the scourger of enemies, is unhappy with me. O queen, you should not be angry, you should be extremely happy in front of you. I am telling you what I will go the forest in bark and rags. I am grateful to the king. How can I not be engaged in the welfare of my preceptor, my father? Engaged by him, I will faithfully do what is agreeable to him, but something unpleasant is tormenting my mind and heart. Why has the king not told me about Bharata's consecration himself? Without being urged, I would have carefully given my brother Bharata, Sita, the kingdom, the desired riches, and even my own life to ensure what brings you pleasure and to accomplish the plague. Why did my father Indramuman not urge me himself? Therefore, you should comfort him. Why is the Lord of the earth sprinkling the earth with tears from the eyes and drizzling these inauspicious tears? On the instructions of the king, let messengers on fleet footed steeds go to Bharata's maternal uncle's household and fetch him here. I will hasten to leave for Dandakaranya, unthinkingly following my father's words. I will reside there for 14 years. On hearing Rama's words, Kaikeyi was delighted. Believing them, she asked Raghavat to hurry about this departure. Let it be that way. Let messengers on fleet-footed steeds leave for Bharata's maternal uncle's house, and let those men bring him back. Since you are so anxious, I think it is inappropriate that you should tarry. O Rama, therefore you should quickly leave for the forest. It is because of his shame that the king has not addressed you himself. O best among men, this rage is nothing and it will pass, O Rama, until you leave for the forest and depart from this city. Your father will not bath or eat anything. The king was overcome by sorrow. He cried shame and sighted. Losing his senses, he fell down on the golden couch, urged by Kaikeyi. Rama raised the king. Like a horse goaded by a whip, he hastened to leave for the forest. Those words were terrible, disagreeable, and ignoble. Having heard them, devoid of distress, Rama addressed Kaikeyi in this word, O queen, I am not attached to Artha. I am not interested in the way of the world. Know me to be the equal of a rishi, only interested in being established in Dharma. I will do whatever I am capable of doing to ensure pleasure, even if it amount to give up my own life. There is nothing greater than acting in accordance with Dharma, in the form of serving one's father or complying with his words, even though he has not told me. I will follow your words and dwell alone in the forest for 14 years, O Kaikeyi. Since you have told the king and not me, it is evident that you suspect my qualities and take me to be inferior to my lord. After taking my mother's leave and persuading Sita, today itself I will leave for the great forest of Dandaka. Bharata will rule the kingdom and tend to our father. This is eternal dharma, and it is your task to ensure this. On hearing Rama's words, his father was struck with extreme grief. In a voice that choked with tears, he wept loudly. Rama worshipped at the feet of his conscious father, the immensely radiant one, also fell down at the feet of the ignoble Kaikeyi. Rama circumambulated his father and Kaikeyi. He emerged from the inner quarters and saw the well-wishers. Lakshmana, the extender of Sumitra's delight, was extremely angry. With eyes full of tears, he followed at the rear. Rama circumambulated the vessel meant for the consecration, glancing here and there, but without being disturbed, he slowly left. The destruction of the kingdom did not affect his great prosperity like the onset of the night cannot touch the one with the cool rays. He was pleasant at and was loved by the people, having cast aside the earth, he wished to live for the forest. He was beyond worldly pursuit, and no mental disturbance could be discerned. Discerned. He controlled his senses and subdued the sorrow in his mind to inform his mother about the disagreeable tidings. He entered his own house. He entered the house which was filled with great joy on seeing them. He did not tell them about the calamity that had struck. Suspecting the misery of his well-wishers, Rama did not exhibit the least boy of disturbance. Next chapter 17. Rama was extremely hurt and sighted like an elephant. However, he controlled himself and with his brother went to his mother's inner quarters. He saw the extremely revered and aged man seated there at the door to the house. He was stationed there with many others. He entered the first chamber and saw the second chamber. Aged Brahmanas who were accomplished in the Vedas and honored by the king were there. Bowing down before those aged ones, Rama saw the third chamber. Aged women and girls were engaged in guarding the door to that. As he entered the house, the joy of the woman was enhanced. They quickly informed Rama's mother about the agreeable news. Queen Kausalya had spent the night in a self-controlled way. In the morning, for the welfare of her son, she was worshipping Vishnu. She was cheerful and attired in silken garments. She was always devoted to her vows to the sound of auspicious mantras. She was then offering oblations into the fire. Rama entered the auspicious inner quarters of his mother. He was his mother there, offering oblations into the fire. Having seen that her son, whom she had not seen for a long time and who enhanced the delight of his mother, had arrived, she was happy like a mare on seeing its colt. Kausalya, affectionate towards her son, spoke these agreeable and beneficial words to the invincible Raghava, her own son. May you obtain the lifespans of the aged who are devoted to Dharma and of great soul Rajarishis. May you obtain fame and ensure the Dharma of your lineage. O Raghava, behold, your father the king is devoted to the plague of truth. Today, the one with dharma in his soul will consecrate you as the heir apparent. Advancing a bit towards his mother, Raghava joined his hands in salutation. He was naturally humble and bowed down more. Out of respect for her, O queen, it is certain that you do not know what a great calamity has presented itself. It will cause sorrow to you. Vedahi and Lakshmana, I will have to live alone in the forest for 14 years. Like a sage, I will have to forsake meat and live on honey, roots and fruits. The great king, will make Bharata the heir apparent. As for me, like an ascetic, I will be exiled to Dandakaranya. She did not deserve unhappiness on seeing that his mother had fallen down like a plantain tree and was unconscious. Rama raised her. He raised the distressed one who had fallen down like an overburdened horse. Her limbs were covered with dust. He touched her with his hands. Rama cited to one who was afflicted by grief. Through she deserved happiness, while Lakshmana heard. She addressed the tiger among men, O Raghava. Had I not had a son, I would not have been this miserable. My sorrow is greater since I see that I will now be without a son. Had I been barren, I would have had only one sorrow in my mind, O son, there would have been no torment but for the fact that don't have a son. While my husband possessed his manliness, I did not experience any benefit or happiness earlier. O Rama, all my hopes were wasted in my son. I have heard many disagreeable words that shatter the heart. True, I am superior to them. I have heard them from my inferior co-wives. What can bring greater grief to a woman than that? Despite you being near me, I have been cited in this fashion, O son. On top of that, when you leave, it is certain that death is better for me. When they see Kaikeyi's son, people who serve me and follow me now will no longer speak to me, O Raghava. 17 years have passed since your birth. That that time has elapsed while I have expectantly waited for my sorrows to be over. I have observed many fast and exhausting yogas in vain. Have I nurtured you in my misery? My sorrows are insurmountable. Since my heart has not been shattered like the banks of a new river overflowing with new water during the monsoon, I think that it is certain that there is no death for me. Yama's abode has no space for me. The destroyer doesn't want to carry me off either, like a weeping deer carried by a lion. Since my still heart is not pierced and shattered, it is certainly made of iron. This sorrow is ingrained in my body, and it is certain that I will not die before my time. Because of this sorrow, my vows donates my vows, donations, and control have clearly been fertile. For the sake of offspring, I tormented myself through austerities that too has been fertile, like seeds sown his barren soul. I am afflicted by great distress. Without you, I will be like a cow without its calf. Had one been able to obtain an untimely death, through one's own wishes, I would have departed now and obtained the world hereafter. She was extremely unhappy and angry. As Raghava looked on, she lamented a lot. Amidst that great hardship, he spoke in this way to her son, like a Kinnara lady who had been tired. Next chapter 18. Kausalya, Rama's mother, was lamenting. Distressed Lakshmana addressed her in words that were appropriate for the occasion. O noble lady, the prospect of Raghava abandoning the prosperous kingdom and going to the forest because one is succumbing to the words of a woman does not appeal to me. The aged king acts in a contrary way uh, because he has been goaded by sensual pleasures. What can one say to a person excited by Manmantha? I do not see any taint in Raghava or any sin that he has committed that he should be exiled from the kingdom to the forest. In this world, I have not seen any man, whether he is an enemy or whether he has been vanished, who points out any sin in him. He is like a god, upright, controlled, and kind towards enemies. Looking towards Dharma, who can unnecessarily cast aside such a son? The words of the king suggest that he has again become a child, remembering the conduct of kings. How can one's heart act in such a way towards a son? Before any other man gets to know about what has happened, with my help, make this kingdom your own, Raghava. With a bow, I will protect you at your side, stationed like Yama, who is capable of surpassing me, O young man. If anyone acts disagreeably against you, I will use sharp arrows to make Ayodhya devoid of all its men. Those who are on Bharata's side and those who wish him well, I will slay all of them. This is Lakshmana's word for Rama, to helping Rama. It is indeed the mild who get vanquished, or subjugator of enemies, exhibiting great enmity towards you and me, who has the strength to give Bharata this prosperity, O Queen. In truth, my sentiments are devoted to my brother. This is Lakshmana's word. I truthfully plague this on my bow and on whatever I have donated at sacrifices, O Queen. Know that if Rama enters a blazing fire or the forest before him, I will destroy myself there like a sun that rises. I will use my valor to dispel the darkness of your sorrow, O Queen. Behold my valor. Let Raghava also witness it. Hearing the great soul Lakshmana's word, Kausalya completed, abandoned her weeping and grief. She told Rama, O son, you have heard the words your brother Lakshmana has spoken. If it pleases you, you should next act in accordance with this. You have heard the words of adharma spoken to me by my co-wife, leaving me in this tormented and grieving state. You should not go away from here. O one with knows about dharma, O one who acts according to dharma, if you wish to follow dharma, remain here and tend to me. Perform a supreme act of dharma, O son. Dwelling in this own house in a controlled way, Kashyapa served his mother. Thereby, performing supreme austerities, he went to heaven. The king should be worshipped because of the respect he wields. But I am also like that. I am not giving you permission. You should not go to the forest separated from you. What will I do with my life or with happiness? It is better for me to be with you. Even I have to survive on grass. If I have to survive on grass, I am afflicted by misery. If you abandon me and go to the forest without eating, I will give up my life. I will be incapable of remaining alive. I will then myself obtain the hell that is famous in the world, like the one obtained by the ocean. The lord of the rivers, on killing a Brahmana, distressed his mother Kausalya, lamented in this way. With dharma in his soul, Rama addressed her in words that were in conformity with dharma. I do not possess the strength to act contrary to my father's words. I bow down my head and seek your favors. I wish to go to the forest. The learned Rishi Kandu knew about dharma and followed his vows. Even then, obeying his father's words, he killed a cow. Earlier in our lineage, following their father Sagara's instructions, his sons dug up the earth and faced a great destruction. In the forest, Rama, Jamadagni's son, acted in accordance with the father's words and used his battle axe to kill his mother Renuka. Indeed, I am not the only one who is acting in accordance with the father's command. I am only following the path that has been agreed upon earlier. That is the way I must act. There is no other mode on earth. There is no ill fame from acting in accordance with a father's words. Having spoken to his mother in this way, he next addressed Lakshmana. O Lakshmana, I know what your supreme affection to me. However, you do not understand the meaning of truth and tranquility. Dharma is supreme in the world. Truth is established in Dharma. Our Father's supreme words are also lacked with Dharma. O brave one, if one is established in Dharma, if one has given one's word to a father, a mother, or a Brahmana, one must not violate it. I am incapable of violating what my father has asked me to do. O brave one, Kaikeyi has urged me in this way because of my father's words. Therefore, cast aside this ignoble attitude of resorting to the dharma of Kshatriyas. Follow dharma, not ferocity. Follow my inclination. Lakshmana's elder brother spoke to his brother in this affectionate way, joining his hands in salutation and bowing his head down. He again spoke to Kausalya, O queen, grant me permission to go to the forest. I am requesting you on my life, perform the benedictions. After accomplishing my plague, I will again return to the city from the forest. My fame is only because of the kingdom. I cannot turn my back on this great glory, O Queen. Following the dharma of those on earth, no one lives for a long time. Grant me the boon today. The bull among men sought his mother's favors. Because of his prowess, he wished to go to Dandaka. He used the foresight of his heart to comfort his younger brother and circumambulated his mother. Next chapter 1:9. He was like an Indra among elephants, miserable, distressed, and extremely angry. With his eyes dilated in rage, he seemed to be citing Rama, restored to the fortitude that was in his own inner self. He addressed his beloved brother Saumitri, means Lakshmana, who wished him well. O Saumitri, you collected various objects for the consecration. Now that there will be no consecration, collect similar objects. My mother's mind was tormented on account of my consecrations. Act so that she does not harbor any suspicions. O Samitri, not for an instant can I tolerate misery and a suspicious being generated in her mind, nor can I ignore it. Consciously or unconsciously, I cannot recall a single occasion when I have done anything disagreeable towards my mother or father. My father has always been truthful, unwavering from the truth. Truth is his valor. He is sacred of what will happen in the world hereafter. May he be fearless. If we do not refrain from this act, his mind will be tormented. That truth has not been followed, and I will also be tormented. O Lakshmana, therefore refrain from this rite of consecration. Let me again say that I wish to live for the forest. O son of a king, if I live for the forest today, she will be successful and will no longer have any anxiety about her son. Bharata's consecration, if I attire myself in rage and bark and sporting matted hair, leap for the forest, Kaikeyi will be happy in her mind. I should not cause grief to the one who has given me intelligence and training and instructed me about great control of the mind. I must leave quickly, O Samitri. It remains to be seen whether Yama will grant me the kingdom once I return from my exile, but for destiny and the sanction of the gods, how could Kaikeyi's powers and my affection have happened? O amiable one, you know what I have never exhibited any difference between my mothers nor have I ever differentiate between their sons. However, to prevent my consecration and ensure my exile, she has used wicked words and free speech. This couldn't have occurred without the sanction of the gods. That lady is a princess and possesses the requisite qualities, yet in her husband's presence she addressed me like an ordinary woman and caused me grief. Whatever is unthinkable in is destiny, and no being can transgress it. It is evident that this conflict between her and me has been caused by this asymmetry which man can fight against destiny. It is evident that nothing can be done except to accept it. Happiness, unhappiness, fear, anger, gain, loss, what happens, what does not happen, all of these are indeed the work of destiny. I suffer no torment on account of the consecration not happening. Therefore, listen to me and still any torment quickly stop all the rites that have been arranged for the consecration. O Lakshmana, let my younger mother not have any suspicion about my standing in the way of the kingdom. She has spoken these undesirable words because of destiny. You know the power of destiny. Next chapter 20.